Can I play in exchange for food? The silence cut through the air like a blade. The question had escaped from the cracked lips of a 9-year-old boy with shoes that had more holes than leather and a t-shirt that hung from his thin body like a surrendered flag. His large eyes gleamed with hunger and a hope that hurt from being so pure. The laughter began as a cruel murmur. Then it turned into cackles that echoed throughout the place. They humiliated him, not knowing he was the son of the world's best goalkeeper. Don't forget to comment from which country you're watching us. Samuel Harrison looked at the perfect grass of the Prestige Athletic Club without lowering his gaze. The elegant adults pointed at him with contempt while drinking $1,000 champagne. The rich kids openly mocked him, and phone cameras lit up to record his humiliation. In 30 minutes, that hungry child would forever change the lives of everyone present. Because sometimes, miracles come dressed in rags. If this story already touched your heart in this first minute, subscribe to the channel. Here you'll find stories that heal, inspire, and make you believe in human goodness again. The Prestige Athletic Club breathed money through every pore of marble and crystal. It was a Saturday in October, and the air smelled of freshly cut grass and expensive perfumes. On the main field, businessmen's children ran after the ball in uniforms that cost more than many families' monthly salary. Rebecca Harrison walked among the tables in the VIP area, balancing a tray of champagne glasses with slightly trembling hands. Her service uniform, black and starched, contrasted with the designer dresses and suits of the members' wives. Nobody looked at her. To them, she was invisible. But Samuel wasn't invisible to himself. The boy had accompanied his mother because he had nowhere else to stay. Sitting in a corner, he watched the private training with the eyes of someone seeing pure magic. Every pass, every play, every jump by the goalkeeper mesmerized him. His bare feet moved instinctively under the table, following the rhythm of the game. "Have you seen that little brat?" murmured a woman with a pearl necklace, pointing toward Samuel with disdain. "What is he doing here?" "He's the servant's son," replied another, not bothering to lower her voice. "How embarrassing. This place isn't for that kind of people." Samuel heard every word. He stored them in the invisible chest where he kept all the times they had made him feel small. But when the ball rolled off the field and stopped 3 feet from him, something awakened in his chest. He stood up. He walked slowly, aware that all eyes fell on him like burning spotlights. The ball was perfect, white with black seams that looked like lines on a map to somewhere better. "Can I play in exchange for food?" The question came out before he could stop it. His voice, small but clear, cut through the murmur of elegant conversations. Richard Morrison, owner of the club and real estate millionaire, looked up from his whiskey. His eyes narrowed as he evaluated the ragged boy who dared interrupt his private event. "Excuse me?" he asked, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm hungry, sir," Samuel repeated, without lowering his gaze. "If you let me play, I don't need you to pay me. Just a plate of food." Laughter exploded like fireworks. The rich kids pointed with fingers full of inherited rings. Their parents exchanged looks of cruel amusement. "Did you hear that, Morrison?" shouted a bald man with a prominent belly. "The little beggar wants to play with our children." Sebastian, a boy Samuel's age but with the arrogance of someone who had never known hunger, approached, pushing the visitor's bare chest. "This isn't your place, dirty," he whispered to him. "Leave before I call security." But Samuel didn't move. His eyes remained fixed on the ball, as if it were the only real thing in the world. Morrison stood up, his imposing figure casting a shadow over the child. A cruel idea crossed his mind. A perfect opportunity to entertain his guests. "All right," he announced, raising his voice so everyone could hear. "I'll make you a deal, little one. If you manage to save a penalty, you earn a plate of food. But if you fail," his smile widened, "you get out of here and never come back." The silence was absolute. Even the birds seemed to stop to listen. Samuel nodded slowly, not out of bravery, but because he had no other choice. Could a 9-year-old boy, barefoot and hungry, face the biggest challenge of his life? Or would he be humiliated in front of everyone, marked forever by this moment of desperation? Rebecca dropped a glass. The crystal shattered against the marble floor. Each fragment reflecting a tear she struggled not to shed. She knew that look in her son's eyes. She had seen it before, many years ago, in the eyes of the man she loved with every fiber of her being. Sean Harrison. The Wall. The best goalkeeper who had ever touched a ball. The man who could stop bullets with his bare hands, according to sports journalists. The father, Samuel, would never really know, because life had taken him away when the boy was barely 3 years old. While her son walked toward the improvised goal, Rebecca closed her eyes and traveled 5 years back to that rainy night when police knocked on her door. Sean was returning from training when a drunk driver crossed his path. The news came out in all the newspapers. The Wall dies in tragic accident. But for her, it was just the day the world lost its color. She remembered the nights when Sean trained Samuel in the backyard of their humble home, using rag balls and a goal made with broomsticks. The boy was barely 5 years old, but his reflexes were already supernatural. "Look, Rebecca," Sean would tell her, with that smile that illuminated any room. "This little one is going to be better than me. He has something special, something that can't be taught." After the funeral, Rebecca put away everything related to soccer, the medals, the photos, the newspaper clippings. It was too painful to remember. It was easier to pretend that Sean had never existed, that Samuel was just a normal child with normal dreams. But now, seeing her son walk toward that goal with the same serene determination he had inherited from his father, she knew she could no longer keep running from the past. In the stands, the spectators prepared their phones to record the humiliation. A poor child about to be crushed by reality. Perfect content for their social media. Morrison personally chose the shooter, Nicholas Miller, a 16-year-old who played in the club's youth divisions. Tall, strong, with a kick that had already caught the attention of professional teams. "Don't hold back," Morrison whispered in the boy's ear. "Let him learn his place." Samuel positioned himself in the center of the goal. He had found some old gloves in the equipment room, too big for his small hands. His t-shirt fluttered in the afternoon breeze, making him look even more fragile. But his eyes shone with a light that Rebecca recognized immediately. "Dad," Samuel whispered, touching the invisible amulet that hung from his neck. "Help me." Deep in his heart, something told him he wasn't alone. That somewhere, beyond life and death, Sean Harrison was with him, guiding his hands, whispering secrets that only great goalkeepers knew. Nicholas stepped back 12 paces. The ball rested on the penalty spot like a bomb about to explode. The crowd held its breath. And then, in that eternal instant before the shot, Rebecca made a decision that would change everything. She approached the sideline and shouted with a voice that cut through the air like an arrow, "Samuel, you are the son of Sean Harrison. Show them who you are." The name fell on the crowd like lightning. Sean Harrison, the Wall, the legendary goalkeeper who had marked an era. Some of the older men sat up in their seats, eyes wide open. Morrison paled. He had known Sean. They had been rivals for years, but the shot was already coming. Could the son of the world's best goalkeeper honor his blood? Or would the weight of such a great legacy be too much for his small shoulders? The world stopped. Nicholas ran toward the ball with the force of a derailed train. His muscles tensed, his right foot rose like a hammer, and the genuine leather shot toward the upper right corner of the goal with a speed that cut through the air. But Samuel was no longer there. His body moved like liquid, as if time had slowed down just for him. He dove to the left side, opposite to the ball's direction, but his eyes never lost sight of the trajectory. In the last second, he stretched his right hand backward in an impossible movement that defied all laws of physics. The ball touched the tip of his fingers. It deflected just a few centimeters. and crashed against the post with a metallic sound that resonated throughout the club like a bell of freedom. Silence. A silence so deep you could hear every person's heartbeat. Samuel rolled on the grass and got up slowly, with grass blades stuck to his t-shirt. His eyes searched for the ball, which had bounced out of the area. He had failed. He hadn't cleanly saved it, but it hadn't gone in either. What was that?" murmured someone in the stands. Morrison rubbed his eyes as if he had seen a mirage. Nicholas looked at his own hands in disbelief. He had kicked with all his strength with perfect precision, and still— "It doesn't count," shouted Sebastian, the rich kid. "He didn't save it. It hit the post." But a gray-haired man stood up slowly. It was Andrew Morris, former national team defender and current sports commentator. He had played alongside Sean Harrison for 10 years. "That movement," he whispered, his voice broken with emotion. "That unnatural reflex. I've only seen that once in my life." Rebecca felt tears running down her cheeks. Her son had done something only Sean could do. Guess the shooter's intention before he knew where he was going to shoot. Morrison approached Samuel, who remained standing next to the post, breathing with difficulty but showing no fear. The millionaire studied him as if he were an unsolvable puzzle. "Interesting," he murmured. "Very interesting. But a deal is a deal. You didn't save the ball." "Wait," interrupted Andrew Morris, coming down from the stands. "I want to see something more." He approached Samuel and knelt to be at his height. His eyes, experienced in reading talent, scrutinized the child's face. "How did you know where he was going to shoot?" he asked gently. Samuel shrugged. "I saw it in his eyes, and in how he placed his supporting foot. My dad taught me that." "Your dad?" "My mom says he was a goalkeeper, that he was good." Morris felt a chill. He turned toward Rebecca, who was approaching with trembling steps. "Ma'am," he said with respectful voice, "is what you shouted a moment ago true? Is this child the son of Sean Harrison?" All eyes fixed on Rebecca. The weight of years of silence collapsed on her shoulders. She could no longer keep lying. She could no longer keep denying her son his true identity. "Yes," she whispered, and then raised her voice so everyone could hear. "Samuel is the son of Sean Harrison." The wall. The explosion of murmurs was deafening. Phones started recording from all angles. The legendary goalkeeper's son, dressed in rags, asking for food in exchange for playing. Morrison stepped back as if he had seen a ghost. Sean Harrison had been his nemesis for years. The goalkeeper who always saved the decisive penalties against him. The man who had stolen 2 championships from him when he played as a professional forward. "This is impossible," he murmured. "Sean died years ago. But his son is here," Morris said firmly. "And he just proved that talent is inherited." He turned to Samuel with a warm smile. "Little one, would you like to try saving a few more penalties? Just for fun." Samuel looked at his mother, who nodded with tears in her eyes. Then he looked at Morrison, who remained paralyzed between surprise and some emotion he couldn't name. "May I?" the boy asked simply. And at that moment, everyone knew they were about to witness something extraordinary. Could the Wall's son prove that his father's legacy lived in his veins? Or would the weight of the revelation be too great for his small shoulders? The next 30 minutes passed like a feverish dream. One after another, the club's best players approached the penalty spot. Nicholas, who had missed the first one, insisted on trying again. This time he shot toward the left corner, low, with spin. Samuel dove like an arrow and caught the ball against his chest with perfect technique. The second shooter was Thomas Wilson, a 30-year-old man who had played in the second division. He tried to fool Samuel with a look to the right, but the child didn't move until the last second. When the ball went to the left, Samuel was already there, as if he had read the shooter's mind. "Impossible!" Thomas shouted, pulling his hair in frustration. But Samuel barely smiled. Each save filled him with a confidence he had never felt. It was as if he were waking from a long sleep and remembering who he really was. The third shooter was Morrison himself. The millionaire had taken off his jacket and rolled up his sleeves. His eyes shone with a mixture of admiration and something deeper, an old wound he had carried for years. "Sean always saved against me," he murmured while positioning the ball. "Always." He stepped back 12 paces, took a deep breath, and ran with all the strength left from his days as a professional player. The shot came out perfect, low, toward the right corner. Samuel moved with a grace that defied his age and size. He didn't just save the ball, he did it with a style that made several spectators stand up and applaud spontaneously. Morrison stood motionless, looking at his own hands as if they had betrayed him. "It's him," he whispered. "It's Sean. He lives in this child." Andrew Morris approached the millionaire and put a hand on his shoulder. "Richard, you have a chance to do something great here." But Morrison didn't respond. His eyes were lost in a memory from 20 years ago, in a cup final where Sean Harrison had saved the decisive penalty against him. He had hated that goalkeeper for years, had blamed his truncated career on those impossible hands. Now, seeing his former rival's son, he felt something he didn't expect: respect, and a strange form of peace. He approached Samuel, who remained standing in the goal, with the oversized gloves hanging from his small hands. The child looked at him with curiosity, without fear, waiting for the next penalty. "There will be no more penalties," Morrison said with a soft voice. He knelt in front of the child, lowering his imposing height to meet Samuel's eyes. The crowd watched in silence, feeling they were witnessing something historic. "Samuel," he began, with words that were hard to pronounce, "your father was the best goalkeeper I've seen in my life, and he was also my greatest rival." He paused, searching for the right words. "For years I hated him for being better than me, for taking away dreams I thought I deserved." The child listened attentively, not fully understanding but feeling the importance of the moment. "But today," Morrison continued, with tears that surprised even himself, "today I realized that your father did me a favor. He forced me to be better, and now his son is teaching me something I had forgotten, that true talent knows no money or social class." He stood up and raised his voice so everyone could hear. "Samuel Harrison, son of Sean the Wall. Harrison, from this moment you have a full scholarship at this club. You'll train with the best, study at the best school, and your family will have a decent home." Applause exploded like a storm. Rebecca covered her face with her hands, sobbing with relief and gratitude. Samuel looked around without fully understanding what had just happened, but feeling that something fundamental had changed in his life. Sebastian, the rich kid who had pushed him at the beginning, approached with his head down. "Sorry," he murmured. I didn't know who you were." Samuel looked at him for a long moment. Then he smiled with the wisdom of someone who has known hunger and contempt. "You didn't know because nobody had told me," he replied simply. "Now you know." And in that simple phrase, all the adults present understood they had witnessed something greater than soccer. They had seen a champion being born, but the real test would come later. Could Samuel handle the weight of his new life? Or would the ghosts of the past be too heavy for his small shoulders? 6 months later, the Prestige Athletic Club was a completely different place. Samuel trained every afternoon under Andrew Morris's supervision, who had left his job as a commentator to become his personal trainer. The child had grown several inches, his muscles had strengthened, and his technique had evolved from pure instinct to perfected science. But more than that, he had found his place in the world. "Concentration, Samuel," Morris shouted from the sideline. "Remember what your father taught you. The shooter's eyes never lie." The boy nodded, adjusting his new gloves that bore the embroidered initials SH, the same ones that had once made the continent's best forwards tremble. This afternoon was special. Morrison had organized a charity tournament with former professional players. The media had arrived to see the Wall's heir in action. Television cameras surrounded the field like expectant soldiers. Among the audience was Rebecca, no longer dressed in a service uniform, but in an elegant blue dress. She now worked as coordinator of the club's scholarship program, helping other talented children from humble families. Her face radiated a peace she hadn't felt in years. Next to her was Sebastian, who had become Samuel's best friend after months of training together. The humility he had learned that day had transformed him into a completely different person. "Your father would be proud," Rebecca had told Samuel that morning, as they had breakfast in the new house Morrison had provided them. "Do you think so?" asked the boy, touching the amulet that now hung visibly over his shirt, a small gold medal that had belonged to Sean. "I'm sure," she replied, stroking his hair, "because every time you save, I see his hands. Every time you smile, I see his heart." The match began with a frenetic pace. The former players, some over 40, ran with the passion of their best times. Samuel saved everything that came to his goal: powerful shots, cunning chips, traitorous rebounds. But the most important moment came in the 80th minute. Penalty. The shooter was Charles Morrison, Richard's younger brother and former national team forward, a man who had converted more than 200 penalties in his career. While Charles prepared, Samuel closed his eyes and breathed deeply. Images appeared in his mind that he didn't consciously remember. His father teaching him to read shooters' body language, whispering secrets about the art of saving that only the greats knew. "Dad," he murmured, "help me one more time." Charles ran toward the ball. His technique was perfect, his shot merciless, but Samuel was already moving before the leather left the shooter's foot. Not toward where the ball was going, but toward where he knew it was going to go. He saved it with one hand, in a display of reflexes that drew a standing ovation from the entire stadium. But the most beautiful thing wasn't the save. It was what happened afterward. Samuel got up, took the ball, and walked toward Charles with a smile. He extended his hand and helped him stand up. "Great shot," he said sincerely. "My dad told me that a good goalkeeper respects good forwards." Charles looked at him with amazement. He had known Sean, had played against him many times. At that moment, he saw something that moved him to tears, a great man's legacy living in a child's words. When the match ended, Morrison took the microphone at the center of the field. His voice amplified throughout the stadium, also reaching the cameras broadcasting live. "6 months ago," he began, "a hungry child taught me the most important lesson of my life. He taught me that talent knows no social boundaries, that greatness can be born in the humblest places, and that sometimes, when we least expect it, life gives us a second chance." He paused, searching for Samuel in the crowd. "Today, I announce the creation of the Sean Harrison Foundation, dedicated to finding and developing sports talent in vulnerable communities. Because after what I've seen, I'm convinced that in every poor neighborhood there's a champion waiting for their opportunity." The applause was deafening. Samuel ran toward his mother and hugged her tightly. Rebecca lifted him in her arms, although he was already too big, and spun with him under the stadium lights. At that moment, mother and son knew the circle had closed. The pain of the past had transformed into hope for the future. Sean's legacy hadn't died with him. It had found a new way to live. That night, as Samuel fell asleep in his new room, he found on his nightstand an envelope he hadn't seen before. Inside was a letter written in his mother's trembling handwriting. "My dear Samuel, your father used to say that great goalkeepers aren't born, they're made. But he was wrong. Great goalkeepers are born with something special in their heart, the ability to protect what they love. Today, you protected more than a goal. You protected the dignity of all children who dream of being more than circumstances allow them. Your dad would be proud, not for the saves, but for the man you're becoming. With infinite love, Mom P.S. In the closet, you'll find something I saved for this special day." Samuel ran to the closet and found a box wrapped in gold paper. Inside, carefully preserved, were Sean Harrison's original gloves, the same ones that had stopped 1,000 impossible shots. the same ones that now waited to continue the legacy in smaller but equally brave hands. He put them on before sleeping. They were too big, like everything in his new life. But he knew he would soon grow to fill them completely. That night he dreamed of his father for the first time in years. Sean smiled at him from the goal of his memories, with open arms, waiting for him in some eternal stadium where time doesn't exist and dreams never die. But would this really be the end of the story? Or just the beginning of an even greater legend? The National Stadium roared like an awakened beast. 80,000 voices shouted in unison the name that had become legend, Harrison, Harrison, Harrison! Samuel, now 19 years old, stood between the posts with the confidence of a king on his throne. His body had grown to reach his father's 6'2", but he maintained that feline grace that made him seem to fly rather than jump. It was the U20 World Cup final, United States against Brazil. The score was 1-1, and there were 2 minutes left in regulation time. In the stands, Rebecca watched with tears of pride running down her cheeks. Next to her was Morrison, now her husband, after a love story that had bloomed slowly, built on mutual respect and shared passion for helping talented children. Sebastian, his best friend since that afternoon that changed their lives, played as midfielder on the national team. Andrew Morris directed the team from the technical area, shouting instructions that Samuel followed with millimetric precision. The Brazilians had a corner kick in their favor. It was the last play of the match. The ball rose in the air like a promise or a threat. Samuel ran toward the impact point with extended arms and eyes calculating trajectories that only he could see. He jumped higher than humanly possible. His hands, covered by gloves that bore an embroidered special phrase, "For you, Dad," caught the ball at the highest point of its flight, snatching it from the claws of the opposing goal like an eagle stealing its prey from the wind. The final whistle blew a second later. The United States was world champion. Samuel collapsed on the grass, not from exhaustion, but from the pure emotion that ran through him like lightning. His teammates lifted him on their shoulders while cameras from around the world captured that moment that would be recorded for eternity. At the awards ceremony, when they gave him the Golden Glove for best goalkeeper of the tournament, Samuel did something that surprised everyone. He took off his gloves, kissed them with reverence, and raised them toward the sky. "This is for Sean Harrison," he said into the microphone, his voice broken with emotion. "The man who taught me that being great isn't about being perfect, but about getting up every time life knocks you down." He paused, looking directly at the cameras transmitting his image to 500 million people worldwide. "But more than that, this is for all the children who are hungry and dream big, for those who wear broken shoes but carry champion hearts, for those who once asked for an opportunity and were denied." His voice became stronger, more determined. "Next week, I will officially announce the international expansion of the Sean Harrison Foundation. We're going to find talents in every corner of the world where poverty tries to kill dreams. Because I learned something 10 years ago. The greatest hunger isn't in the stomach, but in the soul that wants to be more." The cameras captured tears in spectators' eyes from all continents. In humble neighborhoods in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, barefoot children pointed at the screen and whispered to their mothers, "I want to be like him too." 3 months later, Samuel returned to the Prestige Athletic Club for a special event. He was no longer the hungry child who had asked for food in exchange for playing. He was a world star, courted by Europe's best teams, with a future that shone like pure gold. But he had come for something more important than fame. On the same field where it all began, the first Sean Harrison Foundation tournament was held. 150 children from humble families competed for sports and educational scholarships. Their eyes shone with the same hunger Samuel had carried a decade earlier. "Nervous?" Rebecca asked him, approaching while he watched the little ones warm up. "No," Samuel replied, smiling with that peace that only comes from having found life's true purpose. "I'm home." He approached the children, who looked at him with mixed admiration and shyness. He knelt to be at their height, exactly as Morrison had done with him years before. "You know what?" he told them conspiratorially. 10 years ago, I was exactly where you are now. I was hungry, I was afraid, and I didn't know if I would have a chance." The children listened to him as if it were a fairy tale. "But I learned something I want to share with you. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter if your shoes are broken or if your family struggle to make ends meet. The only thing that matters is that you never, never stop dreaming." He pointed toward the goal where he had saved his first penalty. "That goal changed my life, but not because it was magic, but because I dared to believe I deserved to be there. You deserve it too." One of the children, no older than 8, timidly raised his hand. "Mr. Samuel, is it true that you also asked for food to be able to play?" Samuel felt a lump in his throat. It was like seeing his own past reflected in those innocent eyes. "Yes," he replied honestly. "And you know what? It was the best question I asked in my life, because it taught me that asking for help isn't weakness. It's courage." That afternoon, while the children played their matches with the passion of those playing for the first time with real balls, Samuel went to the exact place where he had been 10 years ago. He sat on the grass, closed his eyes, and felt his father's presence like never before. Not as a shadow from the past, but as a living force that inhabited every save, every smile, every opportunity he gave to other children. Rebecca approached and sat next to him in silence. Mother and son watched together as a new generation of dreams took shape in the same place where theirs had been born. "Would Dad have been proud?" Samuel asked, with the voice of a child who still needed his absent hero's approval. Rebecca took his hand, now big and strong, but which for her was still the little hand she had held when he was 3 years old. "Your father wouldn't have been proud," she said with a mysterious smile. Samuel looked at her with surprise. "He would have been ecstatic," she continued, "because he achieved something no goalkeeper in history had accomplished. He saved the future of hundreds of children and gave them back their hope." As the sun set over the Prestige Athletic Club, painting the sky gold and orange, Samuel stood up and walked toward the goal once more. He positioned himself between the posts, extended his arms, and whispered to the wind, "Thank you, Dad, for teaching me that great goalkeepers don't just stop balls. They stop injustices." In his pocket, he carried a letter that had arrived that morning. It was from a 9-year-old boy from Rwanda who had seen the World Cup final on television. The letter said, "Mr. Samuel, my name is David, and I live in a very poor village. I don't have shoes to play, but I have a very big dream. Do you think someday I could be like you? My mom says that if you dream hard enough, dreams come true. Is that true?" Samuel smiled, kept the letter close to his heart, and knew his story was just beginning. Because he had learned that true legacy isn't measured in trophies won, but in lives changed. It's not counted in spectacular saves, but in smiles returned. It's not about being remembered as the best, but about ensuring others also have the opportunity to be. He didn't play for fame, nor for glory. He played for hunger, and he ended up feeding everyone's soul. This story reminds us that behind every champion there's a child who dared to dream, and behind every fulfilled dream there's a community that decided to believe. If you were moved by Samuel's story, share it with someone who needs to remember that miracles exist when we dare to give talent a chance no matter where it comes from. And if you know any child with big dreams but few opportunities, be their Prestige Athletic Club. Be the one who tells them their dreams are valid. Because we all deserve the opportunity to save our destiny. Like if you believe in the power of second chances, subscribe for more stories that restore faith in humanity, and share in the comments. What was your decisive penalty moment in life? See you in the next story, where we'll continue proving that happy endings don't only exist in fairy tales.